Hello everyone, and welcome back. Welcome again to our weekly CEO Diaries. This is an unfiltered session that really is just intended to share with you some of what's going on behind the scenes of Future Females, our business, sharing with you some of the struggles, some of the key decisions we've had to make, some of what's working, and also what's not working, so that you, whether you are launching a new business or launching a product or service or growing an existing business, can hopefully learn from our mistakes and also take away some tidbits to help you just make that launch a lot more seamless and impactful. So I feel a little guilty that it's called CEO Diaries because, as you can see, I am joined by my incredible co-founder, Cerina, who is our COO. So Cerina, thank you so much for joining.
Of course, this is always so much fun.
Before we get stuck into this topic of networking, which I'm really excited about this topic, and I mean, I love all of our topics, but I'm excited about this one because I don't think it's spoken about enough. I don't think it's perceived as perhaps something to spend as much time on as like your marketing strategy and your social content, but actually it's been one of the biggest drivers of at least revenue for our business over the past 5 years and probably will continue to be. So I can't wait to get stuck in. Before we do, though, hello to everyone who's joining us. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. Please say hi. We are using a tool called StreamYard. People always ask me what tool we're using. It is called StreamYard. What it does is stream to all of these channels simultaneously, and it pulls all of your comments into the forum for us. So wherever you are, we'd love you to interact. Share your experiences. This is a community, right? We're going to share ours, but we'd love to all be able to learn from each other and ask your questions so we can add as much value as possible. So if you want to start just by saying who you are and where you're joining from, what city are you currently sitting in? I'm sitting in Johannesburg. Cerina is sitting, are you in Swakopmund at the moment?
Yes, I'm in Swakopmund, Namibia.
In Namibia. And welcome. I can see Danielle and Foiba. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Quickly, there is a prize. This prize is awarded in this session after the discussion, and it goes to whoever has interacted or asked the best question or shared, I'm joking, from KZN, or just shared the most authentically about a challenge you're facing or something that's worked for you. The prize is free access to our Level Up Launch Library, which is an all-encompassing training that gives you everything you need to launch your business on Instagram, on LinkedIn, with partners, obviously connected to what we're going to be sharing today, and even gives you our launch Trello board, which is a project management tool, literally showing you the step-by-step of how to do a launch or how we do our launches. Loving seeing all these names flying in. Hello, wherever you are joining us from. Cerina, since you don't join me every week, I think it would be valuable to share how you got into entrepreneurship and obviously linking it into this topic of networking. I know you're not from an entrepreneurial background. So do you want to just share how you made that pivot point?
Yeah, thanks, Lars, to just chat about that for a bit. So for all of you, I'm a food scientist by practitioner, if I can call it that, right? So if you don't know what that is, those are the people that kind of like either one, design food, so you kind of like come up with that on a high scale, right? Or more on the compliance side. So if you're in a factory and you've got like quality assurance and you want to export and there's all these things that you have to comply with, you work with those systems on compliances too, right? But so actually I worked in a white coat and white hairnet and boots. It was like my gear. And at a stage, I realized I'm going to hit the ceiling. I don't know what to do. And so I was like, I don't know actually what else to do. So I'm just going to do an MBA and see where this goes. Like during the MBA, I fell in love with one subject, which I thought I would hate, entrepreneurship. And I decided to combine my thesis with the lean startup principles, which is based on the lean operations manufacturing of Toyota, those principles tested in the startup space, so no waste, do things quickly. And from there, I got the opportunity. I knew that I wanted to pivot. I wanted to leave my career, and someone, again, going into network actually, because I had to interview a lot of people for my paper, right? And I realized who I'm clicking with and who are people that has good advice. And so after my paper, I went back to them and I was like, okay, I want to make this career move. What do you suggest? And through that, kind of like the dominoes just fell, or the puzzle pieces fell into place. And they were like, actually, across the street, this person is now at this cocktail at the GSB. Let me go introduce you. And she was like the head of Rise, where Lauren and I then met at the Techstars Accelerator, which I think you know a little bit about now, all of you. So yes, I walked into this entrepreneurial space from, number one, Namibia, and number two, no entrepreneurial, like very corporate, and actually in a laboratory or in a factory, right? So not even a lot of like outer exposure, if I could say that. And if you've heard me before, I said, you know, it was so scary. I remember I had a red notebook and I just wrote everything that I didn't understand. And it was every day I went with like 2 pages home, and I just had to Google all of these slang and words and things that people were talking about, which I had no idea about, right? So that's actually me, yeah, just in answering that.
And I love hearing your story, but I also think it's important because often there's a perception that, you know, businesses that do well or grow quickly, they already have all of that support. But actually, you came from a background that was so different. And my journey coming from Australia, where I had lived for 18 years, worked in corporate. Yes, I had had a lot of exposure to the tech ecosystem and worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. But when I moved to South Africa, mostly for love of my fiance, but also just of the country and the beauty and the ecosystem. But I knew no one. I knew I wanted to support female entrepreneurs. Obviously, that's how we connected. But I didn't know a single female entrepreneur. And so for all of our listeners, Cerina and I, we worked on this accelerator program for 3 months. There wasn't a single female founder in the accelerator. So we were actually left feeling like, yes, we're now in a network, but this isn't our network. Like, where are the women like us building businesses? And that's how Future Female started. And I remember, Cerina, we decided we're going to host an event. That was day one of Future Females. And we had a date, we had a space because we were having it at Rise, where the accelerator was hosted. We didn't have anyone to invite, and we didn't have any speakers. And do you remember how hard it was to find speakers? I remember sitting there. One person actually emailed us and was like, I'm a female founder. I'm happy to speak. And we were like, thank God, because we're not finding any others. And then that day, we're sitting on the couches and we're phoning stores. We're phoning shops in Cape Town. And we're like, hi, is your boss a woman? No, okay. It really wasn't easy at the start.
No, it really wasn't. And I mean, Lars, also, just let me ask, can you hear me properly? Am I frozen? Oh, okay. So just leading up, I mean, it was so difficult, right? But then I also want to say that in the end, obviously, it was successful, right? But during the program, there were a couple of things that Lauren and I did, which I think made it easier the day of, right? So during the program, there's like this mentor madness. And we as strangers into this space, right? Lauren as a foreigner, and me as, like, you know, not being in the space, we identified that this is an opportunity for us to meet people that we want to ask questions to, want to learn from, might want to have a relationship with, to either be our mentor, or just if we have a question, hey, we can go and ask, or be an introduction to the next thing, right? And so during this mentor madness, we're exposed to like 52 of the best entrepreneurs in South Africa, right? And we actually, Lars, I know that you did it because I also did it. We went through this list individually at that stage, right? But and saw who are there who we want to meet and build relationships with, right? And we invited them for coffee, and we had different meetings, and in that way, I guess Lauren and I kind of like built a little bit of a network, right? At least we had some introductions. We could touch base again with someone to ask for a referral, and I know that is how we got one of the speakers, or like the last speakers, right? The two ladies. So yes, we were anxious and all of these things, but I also want to say there was like leading up to a successful event at the end. We actually did do things which we didn't always know how was it going to look at the end. We just knew that it is important. We have no ask right now, because I think a lot of the times you and I just went like, we were like, we have no ask right now, right? We just want to get to know you and we'll chat to you, whatever. And which I guess was nice for those people also, because they weren't like, oh, now I need to give you a job, or like, now I need to, you know. And then we could go back and say, hey, I'm looking for 2 female founders. Do you have anyone in your network? That's also what I remember specifically about the success.
Yeah, I want to build on that. I'm also loving Anne Sine from YouTube. We should coin that: cold coffees that build your network. Love it.
Yeah.
It's exciting. And I think I want to share 2 tips. Obviously, Cerina and I were lucky because in that accelerator, we were automatically exposed to that network of mentors. But you can apply the same learning in different ways. And I'm going to share my 2 tips before maybe we talk more about how to leverage it if you're in a different situation. The first tip I would have is really research that person. So we knew who all of the mentors are, their name and their business. So I went through, and I did this again actually last year. I had the opportunity to go to Nairobi in Kenya and speak during Innovation Summit. And I got the full list of like 140 speakers and participants. I put it in a spreadsheet. I went through, I followed every single person on LinkedIn, and I found one, like, I call it like my nugget. I actually get excited when I find it. And what this is the connection point that you have with this person. Do you have a mutual contact? Are you following a similar interest page? Did you go to the same university? Like, whatever it is, it can be tiny, but what is that connection point? So that when you meet them, you can be like, hey, didn't you also study at INSEAD? Or hey, I also saw you were interested in the green economy space like I am. And you have something immediately where they're like, and it's memorable. So I think that's my first tip. And I put it in, I spent hours in my spreadsheets doing this. The second thing, and Cerina, I know you said don't go in with an ask. And I think that's true because, and guys, everyone tuned in can probably relate to this. It sucks when you leave a networking event with an action list and you don't feel like there was an exchange of value. It kind of dissuades you probably from doing more networking. As much as you want to help, you're still building your business too. So what I try and go in with instead is a really good question. Because again, nothing's more annoying than when you're wasting people's time. And if you're like, just tell me about you, I'll tell you about me. And then you're like, And sometimes that will happen. But other times I like to be like, look, it looks like you're interested in the funding space for female entrepreneurs. What are you seeing as some of the key barriers that you think could be addressed? Like one really solid question, obviously related to your business. Yeah.
I really like that point. Lars, going in with a really good question. When we started, I'm just reminded now as we talk, I think memories come back. But when we started, we hosted a networking event. Actually, it was our 3rd event. And so we invited someone in to also give us tips, right? And one of the things that just talking now about this ask, because one of the tips that they gave was like, research the person and be prepared with an ask, right? But I thought it was, now your approach is actually such a good growth from that 5 years ago, right? Because everyone is now tired of asks. And yes, sometimes it's good. Now that I think about, sometimes we get approached a lot by a lot of people, and we kind of go like, look, what do you want before we meet? Because I just want to know what this will be about. But so kind of like, to all of you, keep that in mind. The ask is important, but I thought that what you just said about the question is so good, especially, I guess, Lars, with physical meetings, right? We have to make conversations for a long time, not just have a 15-minute Zoom call. Yeah, I really
Although
like
that
that.
would be ideal. But actually, Cerina, I think, do you know where the ask I feel comes in? Is when you're defining your networking strategy, if we can call it that. Because I think there's different ways of going about this. One is obviously just attending events, meeting a lot of people, and seeing where synergies are. The
Yeah.
other approach, which I now favor, is very deliberate outreach to build and fill specific gaps in your network that you have. And I think that's where the ask comes. And like, to everyone that's tuned in, if you haven't already done this, like, what is it that you really need? Do you need a funding partner? And therefore, you need to build your network of funders, funding facilitators, founders who've raised funding. Do you need mentors who are more functional experts? Do you need to leverage market, i.e., like maybe you want to get in touch? I'll give you one of our examples. We obviously look to form partnerships with other communities and other bodies that have networks of SMEs that are part of them. So if we're looking for access to market, that's a type of partner that I'm researching and trying to get in touch with. I personally find I love networking. I mean, I'm an extrovert. I'll go to like any party that I'm invited to, but I find it quite overwhelming for that reason. I can end up with like lists of hundreds of people who I'm like, oh, they were amazing. And that person was amazing. But actually, what is the specific business gap that I'm trying to fill? And I think the challenge with that is also then saying no if you're getting networking inquiries coming in, which is also something that we've been working on. But yeah, I think who do you need in that network is important to figure
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. I'm listening to you, and because I have more info than the attendees in the room, yeah, on you, I can hear some of the things that I know that you do personally and BD. So personal network and BD, right? And I mean, networking is such a good conversation in like the personal networks that we have to build, and how we build this, how do we select this, but also on the business development side. And I would love to, yeah, actually hear what are your different approaches between the two. Are they different? Do you actually nowadays almost look at it the same? You're like, this is my needs actually on a business partner, but also in a mentor, or like in someone that can give me good perspective as, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think that I think that I do see them quite differently. And I'm just seeing some questions here as well, which I think, I might pop up that
Yeah.
would be helpful. So Simone, for example, saying like, what if you don't exactly know what you need, which, is probably a position that a lot of people are in. And also, you know what you need, then you don't know what you need, and then you know again. So it's definitely that roller coaster. So we have all been there. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, Cerina, it's probably going to be interesting to get both of our perspectives on this, because the bulk of my networking is related to filling business gaps. Whereas I know you spend a lot of time building like your immediate and personal network of mentors. So maybe we can both touch on this. I think that I am, it's actually quite interesting. If anyone tuned in has done the Clifton Strengths Finder, I think it's called just Strengths now. Anyway, what it does is it tells you your top 5 strengths. I love this. It's essentially a personality assessment tool, with the principle being focus on your strengths and accelerating those rather than fixing your weaknesses. There's 2 strengths related to networking that are very different. One is called a woo, that is winning others over. That is the strength of being able to connect with someone in that first meeting, personally, energetically, and like have a good outcome, right? That good outcome normally being like, great, let's think on next steps. Whether it's sale, and I'm probably thinking more about sales. But then there's another strength that I can't even remember, but I think you have, which is maintaining relationships long term. So I find it quite interesting now that I have that framework, because I'm really good at the first meeting, but I'm really inconsistent after that point. So I guess how I used to approach it, trying to manage everything when it came to sales networking, is different to how I do now. Now, I have a whole bunch of people that help me. I have a BD person who we employ. We have commission-based BD people in different parts of the world. We have our ambassadors who are always looking for opportunities and passing them through. I guess I've stopped trying to do it all myself. And then when it comes to the personal side of things, I exclusively ask for referrals from people I aspire to be like. One of my most ridiculous stories of building my network, and Cerina will know this. So I go, who has a business that I want to build my business to be like? They've done it. They're many, many steps ahead, but often you think these people are inaccessible. So I found this guy. His name is Paul O'Mahony. He is amazing. He's probably the best speaker I've ever heard. And he also runs a really, really successful social media coaching business. So I'd met him in passing, but I wasn't getting many responses to my outreach. But I knew he lived in Cyprus. And so when I was accidentally stuck out of the country for 9 months because of COVID, I was like, I'm going to go to Cyprus because he'll be stuck in Cyprus and he'll have to meet me. So I went there. I landed and I sent a very nonchalant, turns out I'm also in Cyprus. Luckily, he agreed to see me. And I asked him, like, will you be my mentor? And I don't think he had much of an option, to be honest, because we were trapped together. But he helped me launch my first high ticket program. He helped me build a whole different revenue stream for the business. So I probably have quite an aggressive approach, if we can put it like that. What about you?
Well, but I also think that's good, right? And I think it's so good to share with people, right? So that everyone out there can hear that those are the extreme, if I can call it extremes, that you can go about, right? And that it's actually okay. And I think the thing that I really like about this story specifically is it is pretty genuine, which I think is one of the most important things. You really respect Paul, and you like how he does things, and you wanted him to be your mentor. You didn't want to use him, right? You asked him for assistance, and like the exchange was good, and I really, really like that. So if it was aggressive, so what? Like everyone is actually aggressive in some way. And I also, what I like about this is it's almost like determination in this wooing process, which I think we should also remember, right? That's why I really also agree with that. I think for me, if I think back now, because we'll talk a little later about how I do it now, but I think how I used to do it was I tried to do the host role a lot. If I think about it, I was the one just like asking questions, making the other one feel important. And do you feel valued? And do you feel heard? And like, and with that role, maybe we build relationships because there's some exchange happening there, right? And I still believe in this host role quite a bit. I was also, I felt I was, and I probably am still very specific on like the energy that I feel. Is there like chemistry, not romantic, just like business wise, can we get along, And once I feel that, I built a relationship in such a way that I won't probably talk to you for like a very long time, but then we have such a relationship so that when I jump on WhatsApp, I can just say, hi, hope you're doing well. I have this challenge which I'm running through my brain over and over again. What do you think? Not to have like conversations like, what, back and forth, how are you doing, la, la, la. Then, hey, let's jump on a call, it's nice, but to kind of like be that direct. I might also be really selfish, so I must maybe work on my relationships a little bit. But yeah, I think for me, that energy thing was there a lot in a way that I can jump on a call or a message and ask anything at any stage. That was like my bar to say this is a good relationship. Yeah.
Definitely. I love how different we are, because I feel what you're sharing is also so important, because often there is not an immediate like, this is how we could work together, or yes, I want to do business with you, or like, cool, let's collaborate. It often is exactly as you said, like it is just a personal bond, and it maintains for as long as you need. And I'll give an example of one. I remember the first day of Techstars, the accelerator Cerina and I met on, and there was a lady called Shirley, and Shirley worked for Barclays Bank at the time. It was a fintech accelerator, and she made the speech at the start, like welcoming the 10 businesses that were participating. And I remember sitting there and just thinking, this woman is absolute power. Confident, like very knowledgeable, but again, energy was just amazing. I saw no way of us like working with Barclays. You and I didn't have intentions of building a fintech, but on a personal level, absolutely, we created that bond. And what was it? 2 years later, Shirley became director of the UK South Africa Tech Hub, which is a hub that supports tech-based entrepreneurs. And because you and I had both maintained that personal relationship, Future Females was the very first partnership that they made and the first thing they ever funded. And for us, like, took our business from here to here, and then allowed us to also expand to 4 other countries in partnership with the UK government. So absolutely, that's such a good point. Like, you might not know it now, but in a year or in a few years, the opportunity might circle back around.
Yeah. If we talk about partners and that, Lars, I'm reminded also about, actually, I'm thinking about all of our partners for a bit, for a while now, right? But I have too many thoughts right now. I'm thinking I want to share with everyone just like, who do we see as our network? Because I must admit, you and I, as Future Females founders, we have lots of levels of network and community, right? So I want to touch on that a little bit. And I wanted to touch on, because you just spoke about our Tech Hub partner. How do we see partners and how do we work with partners as a network? And yeah. So maybe I'll just leave this here if you want to start the conversation in a certain way, because I have now.
I do. It's a good topic, and I can also see a lot of questions flying in. I see one about the challenges and underlying beliefs. We're going to come back to that, Royalty. It's a really good question. I think, Cerina, the levels of network make sense to speak about, because probably a lot of the people tuned in are starting out. And so, like, what does that kind of extended ecosystem of your business need to look like? So do you want to start there?
Yeah. Yes. So I think I'll start first with Lauren and my coaches and mentors, right? That's where we started, right? Before when Future Females, we launched, we didn't even know what was coming next, but it was in that first 3 weeks where we also like dreaming up the vision and mission and our values and like, what do we want to reach? And like identifying who do we want to learn from? Who do we want to get advice from? Who's those people that we actually want to WhatsApp at night and say, hey, and so choosing those people. So I think that's the first network that we built, I would say, our mentors and our coaches. And we still work with mentors and coaches to this day, and we probably will till the day that we die. And some move out and then they come back. Some we stay close to for a long time. Some never come back because, it served its purpose or whatever. But that mentor or coach definitely was our first one.
Just on that one, Cerina, I remember one of the people we first approached, I had actually connected with on LinkedIn months before. Because my approach before I was in this accelerator, and for anyone who, is like, great, but I'm not in an accelerator, was to reach out to one person on LinkedIn for a coffee my goal was to have a coffee a day with someone I didn't know. And how I did that was just probably messaging 3 to 5 people per day on LinkedIn, asking if they'd be open to a short conversation. And that first guy, G, we actually had a WhatsApp group called How Not to Fuck Up Future Females.
Yeah.
And I remember it. But the reason I want to share that is mentor and coach, right? There's definitions for these terms, and there's different definitions depending on who you're asking and who you're working with. For me, the definition is irrelevant. What we were trying, and maybe not for you, but my understanding of what we were trying to do was just have access to credible people we could ask a question to. I don't think we ever said, like, will you be our mentor? I think we just said, like, would it be okay if sometimes we come and ask you for help when we're stuck? And I know, like, that's a point, I don't see the question here, but often I get asked, like, how do I formalize my mentors? And some people probably will give you a better answer than this, but I'm like, why? Why do you want to? Like, do you need to? Do you already have access? Have they already said, call me anytime, I'm open for this X hours a month or whatever? So yeah, just sharing that.
Yeah, definitely love that. Can I go on? Do you want to go on? Okay. So the next one for us as future females, because you know our business quite a bit, right? We know that we've got chapters around the world. One of our next one was the ambassadors, right? It's the woman that runs that represents future females in other cities and in other countries and in languages that Lauren and I can't even speak and understand, but where the need is there, right? And so these women being pioneers in their cities and society. Can you hear me properly? Am I echoing? Okay.
No, you're fine.
Okay. They are important for us. They really, really are. Because really they are groundbreakers. And most of the time, these aren't like super, super successful women who have done it all, right? And they know it. They're actually walking the path with me and Lauren, right? Figuring things out. And they're figuring it out in their culture, their city, their ways, right? So that, and to be able to trust them, to be able to ask them things, to be able to expect things from them, right? Because you and I went with, like, if you want to be ambassador, this is what you should do. So, but this is without a real relationship. So how do you build that then? And the reason why I'm also maybe saying this to you, or you might be, number one, wanting to build a community, right? You might want to use ambassadors in some way in building your community for your product. Or the other thing is that it might be volunteers that you work with, which is kind of like the same for us, like they're volunteers. So how do you manage volunteers differently to employees as a network and a community strength, right? I don't know if you want to add something to that.
No, I think just for us, it's ambassadors. But if we take the title away, it is people who can amplify what it is that you do. So for you, it could be thinking about maybe influencers that you want to work with, or founders with complementary offers where there's a benefit if you kind of shared each other's businesses. But I guess amplifiers is how I would think about that.
Yeah, really nice. I think also then another level that we specifically have is obviously our, I'm going to say facilitators. And when I say facilitators, it's going to be our coaches, but also our wonderful speakers at these different events. And these women are experts, right, in their fields in these different countries. So for us, as Lauren and Cerina, we are grateful for, number one, getting access to these women in the different cities and countries, right? So, suddenly I have a marketing expert in Sydney. Suddenly I have someone who can do cybersecurity because of this, So our network grew like that. So we see this network, these coaches and speakers, as another level of a very important network that we nourish, right?
Absolutely. And then The fourth network is our peers, right? I'm like anticipating where you're going. But because I can see a few people, firstly, exchanging information on the events that Future Females holds in the chat. But absolutely. So I think just touching on the speaker network, for you, it might not be speakers. Maybe you don't host events. Maybe you offer programs, and for you, it could be contributors. So for us, it's also our creators of the courses we offer inside our platform, people with deep functional expertise who can either help your customers or help you, right? You're not a specialist in everything. And like, by no means should we try to be. So who are the people that can help you with like those specific things? Because that is what they're known for. And then your peers. And I think, I probably oversay this, but I've learned time and time again that only an entrepreneur can truly understand an entrepreneur's journey. And we actually ran a survey in December. And one of the key questions we asked is, where do you go for your business advice? And the number one response was family and friends, as opposed to an entrepreneur community. And yes, maybe some of your friends are successful entrepreneurs, but my question is always, do they have a business you aspire your business to be like? And if the answer is no, go and find advice elsewhere. And I mean, from my family, super supportive. And actually, my mom was an entrepreneur, but they're not now. They don't understand the current dynamics of the environment that we're building in. When I started my first business, I was in corporate, in consulting. None of my colleagues who I was spending my 15 hours a day with were building a business like mine. So you're getting advice, and it's coming from such a good place, but it's not Gestalt, which is a term that we use at Future Females when we share advice. That means it comes from experience. It's not like, oh, I saw this idea, why don't you try it? But I don't know if it's even going to work. This is, I've tried this. It's sound advice that worked for, kind of like we're sharing with you now. This worked for me. This didn't work for me. I haven't tried this. I think that is really like part of the value of the entrepreneurial network that, we're building at Future Females and through this platform. These are people in the trenches with you. Yeah. And so obviously the advice is more relevant, but secondly, the emotional support, which we should never underplay. Everyone who is an entrepreneur has had really shit times and really good times. And that resilience and that grit, I would also say, is very unique to someone on the entrepreneurial journey rather than on any other. That's why Future Females started as it did, right? Building out peer networking opportunities.
Yeah. I can add to that, but I'll just leave it there. I don't know if there's any questions about this.
I can see a couple of questions. Please do pop any questions you have into the chat. Shirley, amazing. I was just emailing you. Thank you for joining. Great to recognize your name. Might sound silly, but how do you go about finding a mentor? How do you even start? I think my approach has always been, who has a business like the one you want to build? Assuming this is a business mentor. And then how do you get access to them? And the how, LinkedIn is a really good approach. Obviously, it's a professional network. And just connecting. An even better approach is getting a warm introduction. And I know this topic is how to leverage, not just how to build. So how to leverage would be, and I did this yesterday, I wanted to get in touch with Xero. I know no one at Xero, the accounting software, but we use it. But my F&B, our banking connection, does. So I sent her a warm introduction, and it is me writing the introduction email for her. Like, hi, I'd like to introduce you to Lauren. Lauren is this. Lauren would like to speak to you about this. So literally, she just copy pastes. It's the easiest thing in the world for her to make that introduction to that person. The other thing, or the third approach that I think applies to mentors as well as kind of your peer network, is that you can buy into it. And obviously, that's what we've built now at Future Females. We've built a closed membership of women who are willing to commit and therefore willing to invest a small amount monthly in their network and in their own business development. And when you do that, you're surrounded by like-minded people. It's different to like joining a big free Facebook group of female entrepreneurs where you have no idea who's in there and what they're building. These closed groups you buy into, you know exactly the level that you're connecting with. And I'll give you an example for me. I'm part of a mastermind, which is also a community of peers. And I pay thousands of dollars for this every year. I'm sure some of you do as well. But I do it because to gain access, your business has to earn over a certain amount of revenue. So obviously at the start of Future Females, I was in memberships like we offer, and then I leveled up to this. And then the next level would be something like a YPO, where you have to earn mega millions of dollars to gain access. So don't discount just buying into access to the people that you want access to. I know Shirley is already our member as well. So I'm looking forward to meeting you more. Do you see any other questions here?
I don't.
I think we should go up to the question I said I would revisit, which was royalties. What do you do to challenge your underlying beliefs and assumptions? And royalty, maybe if I'm just going to make an assumption about putting this into the context of networking and maybe the fear of reaching out to certain people. C, do you want to chat about that?
Yeah, I think my main advice would just be jump. I mean, what can you really lose, royalty? The only thing that you can lose is time. And you know what? We affirm everything that we also don't do, right? Oh, I can't reach out to this person. So actually, I'm just affirming the fact that I believe I'm not good enough. The things that I ask isn't worth being asked. But try to do that switch to say that, hey, I'm only going to ask someone. They can say no, right? And jump. It's going to be difficult in the beginning, really, but it's the same as exercise, right? It's, getting into that routine, but you're going to train a muscle, actually. And I'm thinking now about something just like on Lauren, when you started with like the business development proposals, right? It was something that you're not used to, felt really awkward putting down these ideas in such a way and just like, throwing, but with exercise and like repeating and like it was easier. And so the conversation was, or like how you pitch was easier. And so royalty, actually you will become better with just like writing about yourself and introducing yourself and saying, this is what I need. And the thing actually also is that, like Lauren and I said, sometimes it's a touch point, sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's, sometimes you just want a mentor for one thing. And you just go like, hey, you're an expert in this, and I would love to get your advice on this. And just throw it out there, and they might on LinkedIn go like, oh yeah, let me just give them my opinion. 5 minutes on an email, and there it is. So
yeah,
stupid, but that would just be mine. Just do it.
No, not stupid at all. I think that's exactly right. I can see Samantha also just saying like, leave your ego at the door. Hey, Cerina. And I want to just pop Sophia's up to follow on from what you shared. Firstly, I love that concept of leaving ego at the door because I operate on the assumption that no one cares. I'm like, probably this person does not want to hear from me. And so when I have that in mind, firstly, it's easier for me to manage like emotionally if I'm not getting responses. I assume maybe 1 in 5 people is going to reply. And I always reach out to people multiple times. The number of people who just don't reply on the first, but will reply on the second or the third. After 3, personally, I leave it unless there's like a circle back. But don't just reach out once and expect a really positive reply. Treat it like, even if it is a mentor, treat it a little bit like a sell. You still need to position like why they'd be interested in you, I think. How to send that first message. I'll share with you quickly what we learned doesn't work. And again, more of a sales and partnership context than a mentorship. Sending out a proposal doesn't work. A blanket proposal that's like, hey, this is what we're doing, isn't it cool? Like, be involved or give us money. Cerina and I wasted so much energy on that in the early days. I remember us thinking we were doing it really well because we were like nailing this list. We were like, yes, contacted 10, 15. It never worked. What worked was personalizing the approach and focusing on value for them. And this is where it can apply to mentors as well. Like, I still like LinkedIn. And again, finding that connection point. So when you reach out, it's like, hey, Cerina, I see we both have a background in food manufacturing and are both now in entrepreneurship. I'd love to have a chat with you about like your passion for access to funding, as I have a new concept I'm looking to develop in this space. I'm not asking for advice. I'm leaving a little bit of intrigue, and it's like firmly landed in Cerina as an interest profile. No, there's nothing worse than just getting this. In fact, it's not bad. You just ignore it, right? Those emails that are like, hi, I've written this thing. Like, can you go check it out? Or, hey, I'm raising funding for this award. Can you support me? And you're like, you don't even know who I am, and you haven't even tried to put effort into this.
Yeah,
That's how
true.
I feel. Anyway.
Yeah. I also think, like, for a first message, for me, it's like, don't make it too long, right? Just, that's something that I feel like if I have to read a page worth of an introduction, you're going to lose me. And I think other people too, right? So make it like short and sweet, that connection point, and I guess like the ask, this is where the ask comes in, like, hey, I would like to meet you, or hey, I would like to get your feedback on one thing. Can I oh my gosh, can I use your soundboard or whatever, so not too long. That's my tip.
Yeah, that is a good tip. Because we are almost at time for CEO Diaries. So before we take maybe one more question, quick reminder that we give away a prize every CEO Diaries session in the session. So we'll do one more question and then we will award. It is access to our best-selling Level Up Launch Library program. It's a whole bunch of different modularized trainings on essentially how to run a successful launch across social media, leveraging partners and your network, of course, giving you our different toolkits. There's a session as well from me and Cerina on, I think it was around launch mindset and some reflections that we did. So that will be coming over to one of you. I think that perhaps we can answer this one from Anne Sine, unless you had another in mind, see?
No, go for it.
Cool. Do you have practical tips to show up on days when you feel imposter syndrome creep in? And then I see Yolanda's question, if you're an introvert as well, what tips could you give? So maybe we can kind of link them together. I think let's both answer this. So there's this tool called Human Design. I'm obsessed with it. It actually maps your energy profile. So I'm not sure if some of you have done it or not, but my energy profile is what's called a manifester. And that means that I have like sharp bursts of energy. I can do like 3 days work in one day, but then there'll be days where I'm like, how the hell is Cerina still going? I'm on the couch, like drinking my 5th coffee, ordering Red Bull. And I'm like, everything just feels too much. I'm like, if one more person sends me a freaking email, I'm going to drown. And so it's quite extreme, my energy profile. So I definitely have days where I really just don't feel like I can show up, whether it is because I'm drained or imposter syndrome or fear or just like stress. Maybe I've just done my budget or something. So what I do is one thing. I'm like, even if I just say I'm going to do one thing today, and also I write this in my diary every day, one big thing, and I'm like, and after that, Lauren, you can take the day off. So I do the one thing, and almost immediately the momentum gets me back into my groove and keeps me going. And then the other principle is that I like to employ, which is similar, is consistent imperfect action. I'm like, sure, maybe someone else is better than me, but they might not be reaching out to this person right now. They might not be posting this piece of content right now, but I can. So I guess I try to just park it and still get one thing done.
I think I want to just quickly add to the energy thing, which is completely different, but we had a drinks, and so Future Females has like these sessions where someone internally comes and shares something really interesting. And actually, we had this on the Founders Club too. But these two ladies work with the menstrual cycle, actually, and the physical energy and things that we as women have during the month. And what they recommended is like, look at your cycle and know that there's some days that is winter for you and some days that's sun for you, and that you should be, like, for example, negotiating in your ovulation period, right? Because then you've got energy, you've got confidence, you've got all of these things. And like during your bleeding, you should not, you should be reading your or like reviewing your HR contracts. You shouldn't be in conflict, right? Because you will lose, right? So interesting for me, I would, if imposter syndrome kind of like creeps in around, hey, I need to pitch, why don't you just try to test it and see, hey, if I make my sales pitches in these 2 weeks of a month, how does that show up, right? And then the imposter syndrome, it's interesting because I had a conversation this weekend about something else that I'm challenging myself personally. And I said to this person, who do I think I am? And they said, where did the imposter syndrome thought come from? But she said, where did this initial idea come from? And where there's an idea, there's potential to explore, right? And so I always want to say, you have the audacity to say something is going to be bad before even trying it. So try to take yourself out of that equation of being like the saying what the future holds and how it's going to roll out, rather, and just the idea was there, and so there's potential. So just go with that.
I love that. So a book that we actually all as a team read around kind of your period and your timelines and your energy is called Period Power. One of our team members actually presented on it back to us. So for anyone interested, check out that book. And then also just wanted to pop this up from Kim, because I think it's an interesting point. Maybe imposter dynamic is our friend. It's our barometer to check in with self, that we're not operating out of an inflated ego. I like that. I think it's always good to check in with yourself. I would build on that. I think that imposter syndrome, it's fear, right? As a base level. And fear is an energy. So what are you going to do with that energy? I like to be like, okay, I recognize that I once heard this analogy I think is beautiful. Like all of our different emotions are different instruments in a band, and you get to choose where you sit. And so are you going to be the conductor and you're going to go, thanks, fear, like feeling you, thanks for that energy, I'm going to do it anyway and use it to propel me forwards? Or are you going to sit right next to the instrument that is your fear and let it overpower you and drown out all of these other emotions? So that also helps me. I'm like, today I'm going to be the conductor of my own orchestra and I'm going to take that action.
And Lausanne, we're going to add this one thing. If it's possible for any of you to, when you're feeling this, if it's now before a sales pitch online, or it's before you pitch something on a stage, or like before you meet, get some exercise. Even if it's just like taking the stairs to like F&B's 5th floor for the presentation, right? Or like walking around the block, but just get your body to flow out this adrenaline. That'll already help too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Guys, firstly, thank you to everyone for all of these comments and all of these questions. Absolutely loving it and really glad that this topic is resonating, and also to see you interacting with each other too on our different channels. You can see a couple of people arranging to meet up at an event next week, which is actually on networking. So thank you. If you're watching this and you're not yet part of Future Females, the link to join us is in the caption of whichever channel you're on. We have built a platform that is designed for networking, but also to give you access to the information you need to build your business, backed up behind the scenes with people, mentors, coaches from our team and network to give you advice when you do have questions. So at the moment, we're doing 7 days free access. So literally you can just click through, sign up and start connecting in with all of the other amazing people that you already have been connecting with here. And then all that's left for us to do is to award our prize. So there's so many people I'd like to give this to, but I'm going to. Do you have someone in mind, C, or can I choose? Okay. We're going to award it to Samantha Killian. Samantha, I think you've been with us for the entire hour now. So thank you so much. This was just one of your comments, obviously, but really appreciate how you shared from your own experiences, as well as kind of asking questions as we go through. So please DM us your email address and our team will send over your access to Level Up Launch Library. And for everyone else, we appreciate you and this conversation. We will be back same time, same places next week. Different topic though. If there's something that you would really love help on as well, please just send us a DM or an email and we'll schedule it in for one of the upcoming weeks. Amazing. Otherwise, look forward to connecting with all of you in our member sessions. So Cerina, I host our welcome calls. So if you've just joined, join a welcome call and we'll get to meet there personally. And then Cerina hosts our connection session. This is every single week on a Thursday, an informal meeting where you can literally build your network through Future Females. So if you are in the platform, also make sure you join one of those and can connect in.
Thank you. It was nice catching up, Lars. And thanks to all of you for, just for interacting. It was really, really nice. I enjoyed it. And good luck with that networking.
Absolutely. Speak soon, everyone. Thank you, C. Bye.
Bye.